So we're opened up to module number 1 for the class, and I'm just going to walk you through what to expect in this module, and this is going to be the same for every module. It's going to have the same format, the same outline, just obviously different content. But usually in each module, I will go over the material that's going to be covered in that module, any important dates, any important information that I want you to have, things to focus on. So you want to make sure that you're listening to these podcasts, otherwise you might be missing out on important information that's going to help you. So in Module 1, we're starting out right in Chapter 1 of the Cicerelli-White textbook with the science of psychology, and this is pretty much getting you acquainted not only with the history of psychology, but just how do we do psychology as a science? How does that work? So some of the research methodology involved in psychology. So every time you're given a module, I will have a to-do list for you. And I do this mainly for the benefit of keeping everyone organized. This would have sort of a checklist of what you should do for the module, including any important dates and what's due for those dates. So my advice would be to work through this in this order. Before you ever start a discussion post, you should have already read the chapters for that post, and you should have watched the videos. That's essential because oftentimes the discussion questions that I give you require you to know in detail the topics that were covered in the chapter and maybe even videos that you watched. So you're going to want to be drawing from those and using those and citing those as content material and examples in your posts. So right away for the module, I give you the objectives that we're going to be doing for Chapter 1. So here in Chapter 1, as you can see, we're kind of doing a broad overview of the field of psychology, who were some of the pioneering, front runners of the discipline when it really got off the ground and got started. What are some of the ideals and base theories that kind of formed the base of psychology. You're going to be learning a little bit of that history. And then it's going to bring you more into modern perspectives of psychology. How do we view human nature today, people, and who they are and why they do what they do? What are some of the modern perspectives? And we're going to be taking a look at some contributions of Skinner, Maslow, and Rogers. Those names will come up again later in the semester, summer course, but we'll briefly be looking at them here. Then a little background on, just as a field of study, what is psychology? Who would a psychologist be versus a psychiatrist? What are the various key players in the field? So that'll help you understand not only who's who, but hey, what kind of degree do I need to do this job? Or if I want to be a counselor, if I want to prescribe medicine, or I want to diagnose people, who would I be called and what would my role be? What would my professional work be? Then we're going to get into sort of the second half of the chapter, points 1.6 through 1.12, really gets into scientific method. So what that entails is everything from how is a study run in psychology, like what are the different components of running a study, what are different types of methodological designs that could be applied to answering psychological questions, like would we want to do an experimental study or a correlational study? Would we want to look back in time as a retrospective study or forward in time as a prospective study? You're going to be learning about all those various methodologies and what are the advantages and disadvantages of each, as well as how to design an experiment, what kind of elements are involved and need to be in place in order to run an experiment. An experimental study is kind of seen as the gold standard in psychology because you can determine causality. It's the only type of study where you can say something causes something else. Whereas in all of the other types of methodologies, a lot of times all that you're doing is you're comparing groups or you're determining what's related to something, but not necessarily what causes something. And then just it'll wrap up with some ethics in psychology. You know, how do we ethically study people and animals without hurting them or, damaging their psyche? We don't want to do that as psychologists. We want to have a good reputation so that people trust us and we can continue to do our studies. So we'll be taking a look at some ethical considerations there. So those are the objectives that kind of outlines the chapter for you. Here are your lecture slides for chapter 1. And the lecture slides, you can best view them in presenter mode. So they're going to open up into a PowerPoint presentation. And if you click on presenter mode, it will give you the slide. It'll also give you the notes part of the slide. So if I'm lecturing on these slides in class, I would be showing a slide and then I would be talking about all the stuff that's in the notes part. The slides very much mimic the book, which is great for online classes because you can take these slides, you can print them out, you can print them out in outline format or 3 slides per page, and then you can have them next to you while you're reading the chapter. And that's what I would recommend. Because then as you're reading the chapter, you're going through the slides and you're going, okay, I see where this is covered. I see where this is covered. Oh, it said this. That wasn't in the slides. I'm going to go ahead and put that in. So you can add in a lot more and then you can use it as a study guide to study before the tests. So that's how I would recommend doing it. And that's really going to be advantageous. In the past, I have put my lectures into a podcast, like done an entire lecture in a podcast, and I just noticed students weren't clicking on it and listening to it. I can actually see that, and I know who's listening to podcasts and how many times and all of that. So it wasn't really worth it. I found that more of my online learners liked just having the slides and liked just being able to read through the book at their pace and take those slides and use them appropriately. So that's what I've given you here. And then I recognize that some of you might have a little bit of a delay in getting your books, maybe a few days. I hope not more than that. But just in case, I've included a PDF of chapter 1 here. So this is the entire chapter 1. In a PDF format so that you can go ahead and get started reading right away, even if you don't yet have your books. But please don't delay. Get those books as soon as possible. You're going to want to have them for the class. Okay. Once you've done that, here are your videos that you're going to be watching for the week. And these videos, again, are in your MyPsychLab. So you got to log into MyPsychLab. And then you're going to be going to videos. So when you're in the MyPsychLab page, you can toggle through the main screen. There's little arrows to the left and the right on the main screen. And those will toggle you through videos, through other resources that they have. And so anytime you see videos, you just click in there. And then the videos are outlined by episodes. And so for this module, you're going to be looking at the videos in episode 1, which is introduction, and then episode 2, the first 4 videos in episode 2, which is research methods. And most of these videos are short. They're brief clips, not very long at all, not longer than, I think maybe the longest one is maybe 13 minutes. Most are like 5 or 6. So you should be able to get through these fairly quickly. But all of these videos mimic stuff that you're reading about in the textbook. So it's mirroring that for you, hopefully for emphasis and hopefully for reiteration, to make sure that this material is sticking. And I often show many of these videos when I teach in class. So you're getting the same things you would be getting in a face-to-face interaction. Here's instructions on how to do your discussion board posting. Read through this carefully. Basically, what you're doing every week is you are taking the 2 modules for the week, and there's a discussion board post for each module. And the discussion board post requires that you have read the books, both books, whatever the chapters are for that book, and that you've watched the videos and that you're ready to go. You now know the material, you're ready to talk about it, you're ready to give your input and your ideas, and cite what you've learned. So if you're going to want to have this discussion board rubric handy, you can go ahead and print that out. It outlines kind of what a discussion board post should look like. Point values, what things are worth, like what a 10-point post looks like versus a 5-point post. Basically what you should have in your posts. So that's a good rubric to have handy. And then you can skip on down to here, which is actually your first discussion. And what you're going to be doing is just clicking right on it. And it's going to bring you right into the screen that you need to go ahead and start your discussion. You can title it by the title of the discussion topic. You can say Module 1 discussion is fine. But I'm going to give you each module discussion, you'll have some questions that you need to answer. And I want you answering this in your own words, not quoting directly from the book, because anyone can do that. But I really want you synthesizing what you've learned from the readings in order to answer these questions. They should be thorough. They should be thought out. You should be citing examples from both textbooks, from Hawk and from the Cicerelli White, that support your answer. I want to see you integrating your resources. That shows me you've done your readings for the week. You can integrate videos that you watch. You can cite those. Anytime that you're citing, you want to make sure you're doing it correctly. And here's some instructions on how to cite in APA style. That is what's required for the class. APA style is often required for many of the social sciences, not just psychology. So get familiar with those. If you are off in your citations, I might tell you that in your discussion posts. I might mention that and just say, hey, you didn't do this right. Here's how you do it. I like to give constructive feedback on your posts. So when I go in and grade your posts, you'll get personal feedback in your grade toggle in my grades, but then in the actual discussion board, I will respond to your answers directly so anyone can see that. And I will often say, oh, hey, you forgot to mention this, or hey, really good job here. I love how you talked about, X, Y, and Z. And so that's good feedback that you can look at. And you might even want to look at my feedback to other people. Like, what did I say about other people's posts? Because if yours was lacking, maybe you can look to see, was there one that stood out that was good, and if that was good, then how can I emulate that? Or if yours was great and yours was on point, then, you're going to want to know that, obviously, and you're going to want to repeat it. So looking at that grading information is really important each week as I've graded. And I try to get your grade feedback to you on Module 1 and Module 2 before the next set of modules are due. So you'll have that feedback before you go ahead and start getting into the next modules. That way, if you did something incorrect or you didn't put enough of something, you can go ahead and fix that and not make the same mistake the next round. So that's pretty much how the discussions work. You're going to be answering this main post here. That's your original post, and that's usually due Thursday, but not always. And then you're going to be responding to 3 other people. So you're going to be commenting on their posts, and those also need to be pretty thorough, citing information from the textbook. If they didn't give examples, give an example for them. Like if you can add on to what they said in any way, that would be helpful. And here is your quiz. You just have a quiz in Module 1. And so you make sure that you pay attention to all the dates and times and on that. And that is it. Let me know if you have any questions.